Hi, guys. Welcome back to Enlightened Awakening, episode 15. Today, I have Kyle Smith on the show. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. So I was really excited to have you on the show. You have a lot of exciting things to talk about here. First of all, you have mindset. You're all about mindset. I had a guy on the podcast not too long ago. He wrote this book with a insane title. I almost didn't have him on.
Oh, really? What's the title?
Zen and the Art of Anal Bleaching.
Nice.
A backdoor journey from darkness to light.
Nice.
And at first I said, I don't think you're a good idea for my podcast. He's like, well, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm a great fit for your podcast. And then I thought about it and I'm like, he wouldn't be on this site trying to, find podcasts to go on if he wasn't serious. So I said, let's just do a Zoom call and see if we're a fit. So I did. And then we were. And he was telling me about some experiences that he had.
Cool.
On the ayahuasca. And
I haven't done ayahuasca yet. It's on my list of things to explore and journey into.
Psilocybin
for sure. Either macrodose or microdose. And psilocybin has been a really cool one. Actually, this is a cool one. This one's my it just popped up and I was like, yeah, it's trippy. Where also, because I'm an adult, this is just my personal thing that I did. I do not recommend this as a regular practice. Anyways, I want to put that disclaimer there just in case. This is not what I get people to do on a regular basis. This is all me. So I did a combination of breathwork with psilocybin connection with cold exposure, and I write all the time. So it's those things all super stacked. A lot of stories, a lot of work. And then, so I was in the bathroom. It was cold water. And then I went into my breathing. It was made so it was a dark room because I'm setting the intention of exploration. So I like to go on these journeys so I have that intention. And intention setting is huge with any other practice. I think intention setting is huge when you do anything.
It sounds like my son.
At this point. Yeah. And so had the breath and I was into it. It was feeling really good. And then temperature was good. I went into the water and I was like, okay, I am calm. And I was just resting there and it was chill. And then my rule is whether it's 30 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever, I at least have to dunk my head at the end. So I dunk my head and then I can skedaddle out. So I did that. I just inhale.
Was it a hero dose?
It was pretty darn close. I think it was a 5 to 6 grammer. It was up there. It was, I remember vividly, we're going on a journey today, boys. Right. And so then went down into the water. So I was fully submerged. And then I'm in a dark room, my bathroom. And then I kid you not, it was like going into the water. My eyes were still closed. Going into the water, when I felt the water go, I could see the sun, or I could see the sun shining, as if you're laying down on the ground and looking up at the sky. I could see clouds, I could see the blue, and I felt a hand on my chest going down, and I could see the hand in this vision, and it was pushing down, and I came back out, and I was like, holy smokes, that was epic. And that one was, it had a huge release in my heart space. Yeah, it was just took me a second. I was like, whew. It was cool.
That's wild.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah. So the water is holds energy and stuff, doesn't it? It holds information and
it can do that. Because there was this is me putting my nerdy hat on. There was I believe it was out of Harvard. Anyways. It's on there. You can Google it. They did a study and it was with water, and they did this in Japan as well. And it was with water, and they had 3 buckets, and it was the same buckets and it was the same water. And with one bucket, it would just be left sitting by itself. The other bucket, it was told nothing but positive things. And then the other bucket was told nothing but negative things. And over time, they froze these buckets so that they can examine what it would look like structurally underneath a microscope. and the structure of the two, like the one was neutral, so there was no information relayed. And then there's the other components where you have the one that was positively talked to. It looks like snowflakes and it looks beautiful. Then you look at the jaggedness and the riggediness of the ones that was smack talked. And so something I think is interesting with that is that if the human body is north of 75% water, then our internal and external dialogue is going to influence the information within that body.
Right.
It'll be transportation.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. So one of my favorite near-death experiences, this guy was gone for over 45 minutes. 45
Oh
minutes.
shit. Damn,
Yes.
that's a solid chunk of time. Wow.
I think it was why he died, but he was out of his body watching the whole thing. He was put in a body bag and everything. So what happened with him is him and his buddy, he was young, he was in his early to mid 20s, and him and his buddy were, they used to work out and stuff, and they had this workout supplement, and it was really popular, so they were out of it in the United States, so they ordered it from overseas, didn't realize it was the concentrated version.
Oh my goodness.
So then they decided to go and get something to eat. And by the time they got to the place, they were barely making it. And they both went into the place to get something to eat. And his buddy just like dropped right there. He went to the bathroom, locked the door. Nobody knew he was in there. And he dies in the bathroom, which is why he was gone. People called the ambulance, and his buddy, was revived pretty quickly, but they didn't know he was in there for a while. And then when they finally found him, they were like, this one's gone, this one's dead. And he's like watching this whole thing from outside of his body, not realizing the whole time that it was him. And he was tagged. They were taking, statements. They had him in the ambulance, and there was two people, up front in the ambulance, and one guy in the back with him. And the guy in the back with him was new, and he kept getting this impression that this one's not dead. And he's like, yeah, no. And then it just kept coming at him harder until finally he opens up the body bag and starts, using the defibrillator on him. And the two guys up front, because this guy was new, and the two guys up front are like, what are you doing? That's against the law. You can't do that. You can't bring a dead body back. Anyway, he didn't listen to him. And then finally, by the time they got to the hospital, he had a very slight heartbeat. And so he was in the hospital in a coma for a while before he came out. But while he was in the hospital, he kept having out-of-body experiences, and he went to the other side. And he vividly remembers all this stuff. One of the things that he remembers on the other side is that he came to this stream, and the water, everything was alive. The grass was alive. The flowers were alive. Everything was like bright and beautiful. And the water, and there, of course, there was no talking. Everything's like, telepathy over there. And the water asked him, is it okay if we envelop you? And he was like, yeah, sure. And the water just went all over him. And it just kind of like took away a lot of his trauma, and it just kind of really purified him. It just like took away a lot of issues and problems that he had. Cool. It was really wild. He's like, I didn't even get wet. So when you were talking about the water, I just thought that was really wild what you said about the experiment, because yeah.
Cool. That's gnarly. Yeah. Something that's interesting too, because there is like many people can have a very strong positive influence with a near-death experience. And something that that matches up with the ayahuasca as well. Ayahuasca has DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and that's the miracle molecule. It's the God molecule, and we secrete it naturally twice in our life. It's actually once when we're born, where we have a potent amount, and then once when we die, when we have a potent amount. And so that's internal, that's endogenous DMT. Then we have exogenous DMT, where we can inhale it through a vape, or we can take it as ayahuasca. And so we get to, this is my curiosity with it. It's interesting to be able to experience what the DMT realm, which I think is very close to, because they're doing studies on this too, where they're actually seeing numbers. Thousands of people are seeing the same numbers within this realm, and people are seeing the same individuals in one. I'll share this. This is a cool story. It's not my own. I watched it on YouTube, and it was Tales from the Trip, and it was comedians talking about the times that they did a variety of different things. And this one fella did DMT with his buddy, and the first one went, so did his thing, went into the DMT realm, and then started talking with this blue lady. And so they were hanging out and stuff, and he was walking around, and they came back, because it lasts about 25 to 30 minutes, and then you come back from it. And so then it was the other guy. He didn't say anything. It was the other guy's turn, because you go one at a time. And then he went, zooms off, different reality, comes back, and says, "Hey, I just ran into this blue lady that wanted me to say, like, hello to you. Do you know anything about that?" And so it's pretty interesting. Like, it's anecdotal, of course, but however, I think it's interesting to be able to explore it, because folks are mapping out the DMT realm. Like, we're exploring it actively and researching it. And I think that from a ritualistic or symbolic standpoint, that, let's say DMT is the thing of choice. It could be psilocybin or whatever someone wants to choose. It is the death of the present self-image in order for the new self-image to flourish, to prosper, to experience. And when we have difficulty with those two, that sucks, because we want to move somewhere, like we want to work towards something. And if we don't perceive ourselves as the person and able to get it, then we're not going to get it. We're only going to get what we've only ever got, because we're the exact same person. So I think that when we have an identity crisis, like when folks are changing aspects of their external environment, it's trying to figure out who the person is, rather than exploring internally, what does that mean to me? Who am I? What is my self-image? And then adjusting it, creating something different.
Wow. Yeah. That's wild. I've never had DMT, but I've heard it described on Joe Rogan several times.
Yep.
And he was even talking one time about one of his buddies that did it, and his buddy was only gone for 15 minutes, but when he came back, he was traumatized because he had lived a whole lifetime over there, and his wife and kids that he had to leave behind to come back. He was completely traumatized.
Totally. I don't think that happens as often. However, it is crazy. It is crazy, because a couple of friends of mine that have tried it too, because I ask around folks that have tried it, so I have more information to see what it's like. And he said that, and I took this as a tip as well, focus on the breath. If you're out there, bring yourself back with the breath. And so how he described it, came out of his body, and he was freaking flying off into space. He said that he just zoomed out, he could see where he was, and then he zoomed out more, saw the world, then he was in the universe, and then he was in this really light area, and he didn't recognize them, but he could sense the people there were his ancestors.
Right.
And then from there, something that's common apparently in DMT trips as well, is a white door. And everybody's door looks different. However, it's still a white door. And he tried to open it, and he didn't have enough DMT, because that's you're going into the next realm. We're going past the possible dimension of some understanding into something that we have no idea, I've never seen. And so what he said was he kept himself calm, because even though he was fluttering off in space, he could still feel his heartbeat, and he could still feel his breath. So it was the breath, and the heartbeat is a tether between the body and the spirit.
Oh,
that's my idea of it.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Wow. So you've had the DMT.
I haven't yet.
Oh, you haven't?
Haven't yet.
There's always some kind of creatures, not creatures, but beings that aren't human.
Totally.
It
could be all different. I hear a couple of solid ones where it's or sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
That's okay. No, go ahead.
I think it is seeing the different beings in whatever capacity. It's really cool, because I think of it where it's you're just going into the space that we don't commonly perceive. So we go out of there, go out of the body, let's say, for example, and then we can zoom back in. And then being able to learn lessons within that and being able to hear of other people's opinions, because things will come up as we also program our mind to see. So if someone is expecting, like, if let's say someone has a resistance to doing it because they are scared of what they might face, that is, and forcing themselves to do that, that would be a dangerous place. However, after I said it, I countered my own point. However, I think that they would also benefit the most from going into that, because what other aspects are they allowing fear to rule them in their life? That would be the question. However, I wouldn't pressure someone to do it, and it's cool. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that you can just go off into outer space and then you're gonna have a conversation. It's gonna be awesome.
My sister, we were in a car accident when we were little kids. And I brought this up to my sister recently and she doesn't remember. But this was now, okay, so I'm 53. So this was like, back in the late 70s, maybe. And, remember those big station wagons they used to have?
Yep.
That's what the families had, right? And, the kids weren't in seatbelts. There was no seatbelt law. You know what I mean? We were just running around the car. And she was in the back, and we got hit in the back of the car, and she was flown out of the back of the car. They couldn't find her for a little bit.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And so, like, after she came home, I remember when we were kids, and she was like kind of in the fetal position, kind of curled up, just like in the basement. And I went down and I talked to her and I'm like, hey, you all right? I was talking to her about the car accident. Now, I might not have this like 100%, but she doesn't even remember this. I remembered it because I was kind of freaked out a little bit. But she was telling me, I'm like, yeah, you got thrown from the car and everything. And she was like, well, here's what happened. I was going through space. I got like super, super far. And something like put their hand on me and they're like, hey, no, you can't. You're not supposed to go here yet. She was getting ready to go somewhere else. They're like, no, you got to go back. You can't stay here. This isn't time for you to be here yet. And I was just sitting there like this. Like, what?
Yeah.
And, we're little kids. So I'm like, you're nuts. And I'm the oldest. So I was like, you're crazy, So I'm like, oh, she got hit on her head too much. But then I went and talked to her about that later. She was like, I don't remember that. And I'm like, yeah, you freaked me out. That's why I remember, Emotions are like little markers for memories. Like when you have an immense emotion, that's like a memory marker right there.
Yeah. It's an unintegrated, unmetabolized memory.
Yeah. What?
Unintegrated.
Uh-huh.
So it hasn't been integrated. It's still lingering.
Right.
And it's an unmetabolized emotion. We haven't participated in the processing of the unmetabolized emotion. So it impacts us later in life. It's like similar, we can have themes in our stories. So if it's a story of rejection, then we can carry that later on too. Stuff like that. So you're totally accurate. Like it is something that's there, and when we integrate it and metabolize it, we own the story. The story no longer owns us. That's how I break that down.
So I learned this kind of sort of recently within the past few years. There's different kinds of clairs.
Okay.
We all know what clairvoyant is, right? Clairvoyant is when you see people that are no longer in the living realm, right?
Okay.
That's the most popular one. That's the one everybody knows about. And then what some people even know about clairaudience, which means they can hear hear other people's thoughts. I mean, not other people's thoughts, people who are not here in the living realm, right? Or they could hear somebody actually talking or whatever. And then there's 3 other kinds of clairs that I recently learned about. Another one is called claircognizance.
Okay. What's that one?
That one is knowing things and you have no idea how you know them, which is most likely probably what you're experiencing, because I have that too. And I'll come back to that. Another one is clairsentient, where you can feel like if they're okay, like And like I said before, everybody has these abilities. Some people block them out, some people just haven't developed them, and so on and so forth, right? But clairsentient is when you feel things. And an example of this would be you walk into a room right after a fight, but the fight's already over before you walk in, and you can feel that like negative energy. Or you go up to somebody or you start talking to somebody and you're just getting this really weird like vibe off of them, or even a happy vibe off of them. It can go either way, you know?
Totally.
So that's the clairsentient. And then what was the other one? Claircognizance, clairsentient.
Those two are resonating pretty good with me. The cognizance and the sentience. Oh, wait, yeah.
Okay. Maybe there's more.
Cool.
No, wait. Claire aliens the ability to smell scents. So you could smell like somebody's perfume of somebody who is not really there. Oh, here's another one I didn't know about. Claire guscience, the ability to taste foods. Like all of a sudden you taste like you just took a bite of steak and
Sensory.
haven't eaten meat in 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Cool.
So I've had that cognizance my whole life, and it's actually gotten me in trouble. Kind of, sort of, I guess you could say. Because, you know something, you don't know how you know it, but you just know it. And it's like, you have no proof.
Yeah.
So, you call them out on it. And they plausible deniability, you know what I'm saying? Like they can just deny it. And it's like but
you don't even know
it's
anything. It's like, no, it's accurate. It's accurate.
Yeah. I wonder if there's another one, because I've experienced another one big time a few times. This was during my dark night of the soul, where and it only happened during that period of time in my life. Twice. No, 3 times it happened. 2 were negative and 1 was positive, where I would be inside of a building and the building itself, like twice. The first time it felt like the building was like, just like wanted to swallow me up. And I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. It was just like really creepy. So I left that one. And then the other time that was negative, I was in it was a bar that I went to meet a girlfriend of mine that I hadn't seen in a while. And it was so weird. It's like, remembering it, I feel like I can see it, but at the time I couldn't see it. I was feeling it. And it was like, it felt like a really dark place. It was just, there was lots of people in there and it just felt like dark and misty dark. And I felt like I was like this light bulb, or like the only light in the place. It was really weird. And then I said to her, I was like, look, I got to get out of here. I really got to leave. And then she's like, okay, we'll leave. I got to get to the bathroom first. Come with me. And I was like, okay. So we go into the bathroom. And that's when she told me that she had picked up an addiction. And I freaked out on her. She's gone now because of that. But I freaked out on her in that bathroom. And then, we left and I was just like, I don't know if maybe it was the building itself. I really felt like it was the building, but it also could have been like, I felt like something really horrible about to happen or something like that.
Like a pre-intuition. Maybe there's like a Claire precognition.
There were several people that we knew that died around there in that place. Like I know there was a lot of that place is shut down now, but there was like a lot of drugs exchanged in that place. I found out later.
Fair.
So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, but
yeah, you were just getting high off the fumes.
No, I want. Oh, wait.
I'm just fucking
right.
Secondhand stoned.
There was another one too. It was another place just like that. It was like this kind of nightclub place where bands used to play and stuff. And I was like, oh, I got to get out of here. But then there was also this one place that had this like really happy, like family, like loving friendship kind of vibe to it. I was like, man, I just want to stay here forever.
Yeah.
But these were all like, all felt like they were attached to the building. Like I was getting a serious like building feel,
Interesting. They're trying to claw you in.
Yeah. I mean, it was never before and never since. but I don't know if there's a name for that. I don't see a name for it. Then there, after the clairvoyance, they talk about retrocognition,
Oh
able
yeah.
to see past events, remote viewing, precognition. Do you remember that movie with, I can see her face, I just can't think of her name. Anyway, it was called Premonition or something. Sandra
Okay.
Bullock.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're watching the movie. Spoiler alert, guys.
Yeah.
You're watching the movie and you're like, whoa. And then all of a sudden you go back like 3 days earlier
yeah.
and you're like,
Yeah.
it didn't happen yet. That was all the premonition.
Yeah. I remember that. I did see that movie, and it was actually pretty trippy. It was pretty cool. Oof. Yeah, because there was a car accident, and then her husband. Oh yeah, that was
Yeah,
a good one.
that
Dang,
was a good one. Because
it was a
you think
mind bender.
you think you're watching it and you're like, okay, when's she gonna have the premonition? And then all of a sudden you're back 3 days and you're like, my God, the whole thing was a premonition.
Yeah, this is the whole thing. Yeah, it's madness.
That one, and then another thing to kind of put a whole new perspective on the dead and the living, the movie The Others.
I haven't watched that one. I don't think I have, at least.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
You want me to tell you about it?
Yes.
Okay.
There's
So
no spoiler issues here. You're good.
this also has to do with, you know how they say time is a construct. There's no such thing as time. Everything is
Yeah,
happening all at once right now. It's really hard for us to
totally.
comprehend. But so it kind of plays on that. And then it also plays on perspective. So basically, this takes place back in, I guess, Civil War times. There was this big
Oh,
house.
is Nicole
Nicole
Kidman in
Kidman.
it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I see that. That
Yes.
one, you know what? I saw that one when I was like when it first came out. I don't think I've seen it since, and it was freaky. Like when they had the old lady. I'm here, mommy. It's like yeah,
Right. The kids knew
woo,
what was going on.
totally. Yeah, it's
The
freaking
little girl
wild.
knew what was going on, but the way that they had died, it was just so horrific to her that she had blocked it out.
Yeah,
And you think they're being
wild.
haunted, and really they're the ones that are haunted. They're both occupying the same space. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those people that came were
Mm-hmm.
trying to help her move on and cross over and
Wild. And then her
crazy, crazy.
husband comes out of the fog and he's like just battered up from war. And he's like, this isn't
Yeah.
where I was like a moment ago.
Right.
Good movie, too. Damn, we're listening to
Yeah.
some
And that was a
gooders.
clue. That was
Yeah.
a big clue. And
Yeah.
that's the part that makes everybody go, wait, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah, right. He just shows up and then leaves. And
Something else that popped up. It's something you said there with time. I had another really cool trip where, and Kendra and I were having a nice little. Actually, it wasn't psilocybin. This one was LSD, and I was sitting down and I was describing it to her where I was looking at panels, and these panels were just, think of it like it was me at 21, 22, 23. So it was like looking at a lifetime of panels of different frames that I've perceived the world through. And that was pretty cool. It was like
they were like slabs of glass, I'm guessing,
slabs
where
of
you could
glass, and it
see
was
the
like I
picture
was
playing
swiping
out.
through. I was swiping through. I was able to like swipe through. I was able to like, it was just a reflection, more or less a reflection point. It was like, it was not holding. It was having.
Still happening. I've heard
Yeah,
that
yeah.
recently. And you can like jump in and then jump out,
Totally
to
could.
see what would have been different. To see, here she is.
Oh, nice, cute.
She was
The
taking a nap.
Nice. The way that I looked at it was, it wasn't even. It was actually being out of time. So I wasn't hopping into times. I was outside of time.
Right.
In this perception, it was like it was cool. It was flowing
I'm
through.
kind of seeing it in my head.
Nice.
Like, because the way some
I'm trying to
people
describe
explain
how
it,
I'm seeing it.
yeah, some people, like, I'm seeing like glass
Yeah,
slabs, each playing a different moment in your life.
totally.
That it's like playing out like a kind of like a movie in the inside the slab of glass.
You know, in some stores they have the poster where you can go purchase posters, and then the posters, like, they have the how you can see them all folded and you swipe through it. It's like that.
Yes,
It was like that.
yes.
It was like,
Okay.
whoa.
Some people
It's cool.
describe it like Minority Report.
I have seen it and I don't remember much of it.
So there were these 3 kids, and I think it was through some kind of government.
Okay.
Yeah, they had
Okay.
precognition.
Yes, I remember now. And they were in
And
that white dome area.
yes, because they were taking all their precognition and they were arresting people before they actually committed a crime, which was like a paradox. They were saving lives, but it was like they didn't really commit a crime, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
And then, they found out that people had been using it for, like political gain, like, oh, there's extra money here. Why don't we just put it in our pocket type thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they were using it to, like, get rid of people that they wanted to get rid of or something. And they tried to do it to him. But the reason I brought that up was because the computer, I've always been like super, super interested in technology, right? The computer that he would raise up a screen like this and he would, be moving stuff around. Instead of us sitting here with a keyboard and a screen, he'd be going like this and he would push this aside and pull this up and push that aside. And I was like, oh, I was watching this movie years ago going, oh my gosh, I want that computer. When is that coming out?
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. When is it coming out?
But a lot of near-death experiences, when they get to the other side and they're seeing their life review, a lot of them will explain it. Something like the Minority Report. It's like there's just like an image pops up and you're seeing it playing out and it's really happening live, and
nice.
So that was wild.
That's cool.
So what can you tell us about what's this abracadabra magic and spells? What does that have to do with it?
Oh, yeah. Well, abracadabra is a word, and we put words together, we spell them, and they create spells. So the way I like to break it down is words are the ethereal macronutrients of the mind. So our body takes carbs, fats, and proteins. Those are the macronutrients. And the quality of the macronutrients is going to influence the quality of the body. The words that we say, think, and write are the ethereal macronutrients of the mind. When we feed our mind quality words, we have quality thoughts. When we feed our mind shit words, we're going to have shit thoughts. And so abracadabra, how it ties in with magic and how our words are magic and how our words are very powerful and can dictate or influence where we go, especially when we're writing our own stories. Abracadabra is certainly a magic word. That is accurate. That's for sure. And translated from Aramaic, because it's a 3,000-year-old language, it literally translates to "with my words I create." Yeah, so it translates to "with my words I create." So a spell, a definition of a spell, is a word or collection of words of great influence.
Excuse me 1 second. Let me let her out. She wants to go outside. All right.
All good. You're all good. It was actually crazy because I actually think like your cat could have heard my cat because my cat just meowed at that same point, and I was like,
"What is she?"
Raz.
Oh,
yeah. We got Raz and Lino.
She was sleeping, and yeah, when you have a cat long enough, you can kind of communicate when you have a strong enough bond with them. She was like, "Excuse me, I've been in here long enough. You need to let me out."
Nice. Nice.
Okay, so abracadabra.
Yes. So abracadabra translates to "with my words I create." So we take the words, we spell them together. Spells are words or a collection of words of great influence. So the words that we say, think, and write can be of great influence on how we experience reality.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I heard Billy Carson say recently, he's like, when you pray, you're casting a spell.
That's true. I also like looking at etymology, so the root, the root of words. And the root of pray is to pra, I believe. And then that translated to English is to entice. So when we pray, we're trying to entice a particular outcome or
That's what
influence.
he's talking about.
Mm-hmm. And so we use those words of great influence to entice an outcome.
Yes. Yes.
So words are magic. Words are spells. And so it goes from the top and goes into the body.
It makes so much sense. And there are so many things that are like right in front of our face that we don't even realize. Like what you said, words are spells. They kind of manifest things. And then
Totally.
I'm good at like, something will happen and I'll just be like, oh, that's nice, and then move on with my life. And then it's really weird how like even sometimes years down the road, I'll put this thing and this thing together and go, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And those are aha moments. I call them pattern interrupts, because it's when two different stories, they connect together. So it fires up the synapses in the brain. So it's I didn't think of it that way. Like those are all pattern interrupts. So when you see someone like even out and about, they'll be like, they just had a pattern interrupt. They just had an aha moment.
So the aha moment that I just had when you were telling me this was I watched this video from another spiritual leader or something like that. She was talking about unemployed angels and how what to write on a paper. Like if you want to try to manifest things, all unemployed angels. She said there are so many angels just sitting there just waiting for a job to do. And it could be something as simple as help me with my YouTube thumbnails.
Yeah.
And she's like, dear unemployed angels, help me with this and this, and writing it down, the words kind of like casting a spell. And if you think of like, wizards and witches and medieval fantasy type things, they have spell books, right?
Totally. Something I'll share on that one too. If you're familiar with the movie Watchmen or 300, maybe not 300, Watchmen for sure. It's based off of a graphic novel by a fellow named Alan Moore. And he was on some sort of UK thing. It was maybe the BBC for a documentary, something like that. And it was about words. It was about storytelling. And something that he said that I thought was really cool. We don't appreciate how much words have power because we are desensitized because of the amount of words that we have. So that's why it's easy for us to like just walk by it or flow by it, because we don't have the same intentionality with the words, or many of us don't have the same intentionality with the words we use. So he was talking about it was 30th birthday and he really wanted to surprise people. So when he came out of the bedroom, he's like, just want to let you all know I'm a magician. So people thought that was a little odd, and fair enough. And then he explained something that I thought was really cool, where if you think of how we have an abundance of words now, that wasn't always the case. So if you look back at the shamans, the clergy members, you can look at priests, you could look at oracles, you could look at, let's see, what else do we got there? Shamans. Knowledge keepers is basically a common denominator. You have knowledge keepers. And the knowledge keepers were a very small grouping of individuals within the crew. So you would have one who would be the knowledge keeper and an apprentice. And so if you're in a tribe,
that sounds like a wizard and an apprentice.
Yeah, totally. And so if you're in a tribe where many people are out hunting, many people are out gathering, many people are taking care of the kids, you got whoever's in the leadership role, making sure that everyone doesn't kill each other. And then you have the magician or you have the shaman, or you have the oracle, or you have whatever, that has the amazing ability to transport information from one tribe to another tribe, receive it, and be able to give us instructions. Now, to someone who's not used to that, that's magic. To folks that are used to that, that's letters. And so we have a perception of magic from, I think that I don't think that I think that we created an over the top perception of what magic is. I don't think it's in the big crazy things. I don't think it's in a DMT trip. I don't think it's an ayahuasca trip. I think it's not the more, it's not the big, it's the simple. And that's where we get the sweet spots with words. We can find some good stuff in there.
And I think that some of the magic can actually be done. We've just been programmed to believe that we can, and that magic is this unattainable thing.
Totally. I would even say that for the structure of the school system, it benefits more from people who are told what to think rather than how to think, if they want to have that structure. However, I will counter that and say that people who learn how to think and to think about their thinking are the people that are going to have a positive contribution to the human race and society as a collective.
Yes.
Because we're in a different time where the knowledge that many of the schools allow, and then we got crazy cool homeschooling ideas for parents that are down for that. And I know a couple of homeschooling parents, and I will say without a doubt that there's this one kid, he was 12 years old, the older son, and I was having a freaking adult conversation with him, and he was mature for his age. So I actually think it's interesting because you look at the folks that are immature with age compared to you can see them more so in a structured system.
I know
they have less experiences. Yeah. And with less experiences, we gain less wisdom. With less wisdom, we gain less knowledge. No. Reverse that. With less experience, we gain less knowledge. And with less knowledge, we're no wiser.
I think my son is a very old soul.
I can resonate with that. I think like my soul is like an 85-year-old, and I have a different character for this one because character construction is a thing that I do with my work too. And it's I call him Solomon Smith. So I have a Notion I have a Notion section where it's just where I write stuff and where I have a back and forth conversation. So it's just a consistent conversation thread just to be able to bounce ideas off of. And yeah, I feel like I'm an old man on the inside. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, this isn't your first time here. I feel like the younger generations are coming in super equipped, way more super equipped than we ever were. I mean, my generation X is the bridge generation, for several reasons. The bridge of technology from not having it to having it. I mean, well, we had technology, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like an explosion of technology.
You still had lights, but you didn't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And here's the crazy thing. So my grandfather was a World War II vet, and he met my grandmother over in France, who was half Italian. Her father was from Italy and her mother was from Poland. She grew up in France, right? And he was an American soldier, and he married her in France and sent her back to the United States on a ship full of war brides. There were a few of them, thousands of them. And he retired from NASA. And so I remember when I was younger, he would tell me things. They brought a lot of those scientists back, and they, just World War II was a lot of technology came from there.
Oh, yeah.
But he would tell me stuff like, I remember when I was younger, he was like, one day you're not going to have to be home to get a phone call. I said, what? Yeah. No, whatever. And another time he told me, one day you're going to be walking around with a computer in your pocket. And I was like, how's that going to happen? Whatever. Yeah. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. He's like, okay. But he always had like the latest gadget. And he told me, I remember one time he told me, he was like, when I retired, I had to be debriefed. And I was like, what's that mean? And he goes, well, that means they sit you down in a room full of suits and they tell you what you take with you to the grave, or we'll find you and we'll kill you. You don't even tell your wife. Yeah. I was like, really? I said, tell me one thing. And he's like, I can't do that. But what I can tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
He said, what I can tell you is that things that we were working on 30 years ago are just now starting to be made public.
Totally.
Are just being, to the general public accessible.
I totally thought, I had this thought the other day, so it's perfect timing. And it's interesting where we get the civilian version of what the military already has. We get the secondhand stuff. We don't get the crazy. We don't get the good stuff. We get the secondhand stuff. And I think it's interesting. And then actually something else I learned the other day, and I totally agree that the upcoming generation has so much opportunity and all the tools at their disposal. However, Generation Alpha, this is what they're known as. And I was chatting with someone the other day about it, and I didn't know about this until recently. It is the generation that has the most possibility. However, it had the least amount of struggle. And so without struggle, we can't problem solve. More problems can make a smarter person. Actually, I like this definition for intelligence. The sign of an intelligent person is one's ability to solve problems. The more problems you can solve, the more intelligent you are. And so, because we're in a setting where everything's a lot simpler, easier than they ever have been, people are going in with less battle tested headspace. Mm-hmm. So it could be the state of expectation rather than pursuing desire or superficial desires.
Yeah, I feel like the younger generations, I mean, there's always exceptions, but more so than like, we Gen Xers can look back at their parents and like, man, they didn't know shit.
Totally.
And then our kids are looking back at us like our parents don't know nothing, I mean? But we are tough. We are tough.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But I feel like the younger generations are coming in more enlightened in general, just like more. Ooh. Yeah. Like I saw that with my son. I have 2 millennial kids and a Gen Z kid. My son is the Gen Z kid. And I can totally tell the difference. And they're all 4 years apart.
Nice.
And yeah, it's just insane. But there is a saying to what you were saying. There's a saying that says, tough times create strong people. Strong people create weak times. Weak times create. How does that go? It's 4, and it's a cycle.
Yeah. It's strong people. Or wait, sorry. Tough times create strong people. Strong people create easy times. Easy times create weak people.
And weak people create tough
hard times.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Like,
right.
Right. Wow. Yeah. My son, I noticed how super smart he was. When he was a baby, he was just starting to walk. Sitting in front of the mirror on the floor doing my makeup one day, and he comes up and he picks up a those eyelash combs and eyebrow brushes. And anyway, it was sitting on the ground like that, and he walks over and he picks it up and he goes like this and he starts brushing his little peach fuzz with this little tiny eyebrow brush. And I just stopped and I said, oh my gosh, he can't even talk. And he knows that this is a brush, and he knows that we use brushes on our hair, and he was brushing his lip. That's what I knew. And he was telling me one time, he would tell me like when he was 15, he was telling me about Buddha. He would ask me like these really deep questions. I remember one time the pilot light on the water heater kept going out. Then we replaced the water heater and everything. And then one time he was making some oodles and noodles or whatever, favorite gamer's food, right? And he goes, Mom, I think he was like 15. Okay. He goes, Mom, I think the problem most likely has to be with the gas line that's coming into the house. And I said, what makes you say that, Justin? And he goes, because when I'm cooking my oodles of noodles, he said, I'm seeing the flame. Sometimes it'll go down and then it'll come up. And I said, okay. So I called BGE. Sure enough, there was a clog in the line.
Nice.
I was like, Justin. So I always listen to my kids, right? And then one time I was like making fun of the cat because you know how cats, they like to eat their food straight down in the middle and there's food around the edges, but they don't want to eat it and they think the bowl is empty. And I was making some kind of joke and I was laughing about it. And he goes, Mom, you know why they do that, right? And I'm like, no, why do they do that? And he goes, they're whiskers. I said, their whiskers hit the edges of the ball. Oh my gosh, yes. He's like, yeah, real on super smart like that. Yeah, on it. And I'm just like, Justin, you're his older sister, Samantha. She's ridiculous. She's cute, but she calls him the Dalai Lama.
Nice.
She's like, Justin is the Dalai Lama. And I'm like, no, he's not. Well, one time I was visiting him. And he lives in Ohio, by the way. Works at Google now. So, people, if your kid is a gamer, that's fine. They're going to be fine. Just trust me on that. But so I went to visit him and he was telling me this story about a dream that he had where it sounded like a past life.
Nice.
But he was like, "Ma, I got to tell you about this dream I had." I'm like, "Okay, tell me this dream." He goes, "Well, I know I wasn't Justin. I was somebody else in this dream. I was a guy." And I'm asking him all these questions while he's telling me this story. He's like, "I was a guy and I'm in this bank." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "And I'm robbing it." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm in this bank. I'm robbing this bank. I have this gun in my hand. My face is kind of covered." And I'm like, I said, "Oh my gosh, like what happened?" He's like, "Okay, well, I ran out of the bank. Had this bag of cash in my hand, and I'm like running down the street, and I'm like, 'Did you see anything? Like what time frame was it? Was it like the 1800s, or was it?" He's like, "No, it was modern day." I'm running down the street. I'm like, did you see a reflection in like a car window or something?" And he's like, "I saw my reflection. Yeah, I look like, in my mid 20s, early 30s, something like that." It's like, "I had brown hair." And he's like, "And the police are chasing me and they're firing shots at me and I'm returning fire." And I'm like, "Wow." He's like, "And then I ducked into this neighborhood and then I find this house to hide in, and I go and I'm hiding in this house and I can hear the cops outside and I'm sitting there." Oh, I forgot a part. I always forget this part. As he was returning fire, he's thinking to himself, "What kind of horrible life decisions have I made to get me to this point in time right now?"
Yeah.
He goes, "And
Nice.
then I find this house. I go inside this house. I'm like hiding inside the house. And then I'm like trying to be real quiet. And next thing I notice, they're like, 'He's in here. He's in here.' And I'm like, oh my God, they're coming in the house. They had dogs and everything. And I'm like, man, this is it. This is it. I'm going to get discovered." He said, "And then I take the gun and I put it to my head and I fired." He said, "And that wasn't the crazy
Damn.
thing. When I fired the gun, time slowed down." He said, "And I could hear the gun go off and I felt the bullet enter my skull and I felt it go through my brain and out the other side. And then I woke up."
Damn.
Right?
Damn.
I said, "Justin, that's crazy."
That's wild. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, but he's had like several out of body experiences, but he's done them purposely. Like he's like,
Nice.
he was trying to do experiments with like lucid dreaming or something like that.
It's been something I've been interested in. I actually have a buddy of mine who wrote a book on lucid dreaming, so I talk to him often, and so I'll talk about like some experiences where I would describe it, and he's like, "Oh, you experience like I know this is this thing." It's like, okay, cool. So it's pretty interesting.
So lucid dreaming is just where you can control what's going on in the dream, right? As you're having it.
To my understanding, yeah. You can influence the dream. I've heard of people actually, so there's a fellow named Tim Ferriss, and he used lucid dreaming to practice his high school wrestling. So he would be training in his mind.
That sounds like
while
the Matrix.
In a dream. Yeah, totally. 100%.
That's crazy.
So it's pretty cool. So that's something that I've been exploring because I'm not I don't have many dreams that pop up in my sleeps.
Right.
I just wake up, I go to sleep, and then there's sometimes where it's like, oh, that was interesting, but they're just little blips. There's nothing crazy to them.
I don't remember my dreams as much now, but I used to remember them a lot. And I've always, ever since I was a little kid, I've always had the ability to where it's got to be really super unpleasant or scary, or I don't like this, and I can wake myself up on purpose. Nice. Yeah, but I don't like when that happens because sometimes, if it's really bad, I'll be like, I don't want to go back to sleep too soon because I don't want to go right back into it. It's like,
yeah. Nice.
But
yeah, it's cool. A lot of cool experiences. I honestly, I think it's fun. I think it's a neat exploration.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I have 2 questions that I like to ask my guests at the end of every episode. And the first one is, what do you think the meaning of life is?
The meaning of life to me is to pursue the truest truth. Because I had that as a question that popped up on one of my walks. And I was like, ooh, that's an interesting question to explore. And it created a frame. And so I think that I don't think that there, I think that the inherent purpose and meaning behind life is to experience it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be the anomaly out of it. Because if we have the time frame of the whole universe, we're just a little blip. And the odds of a human being existing is 400 trillion to 1. So I would say that the meaning of life, and going back on that other point, if our parents were a minute or 5 minutes off, then we wouldn't exist. Everything that had to happen before that point had to happen in order for that 400 trillion to 1 chance to happen. And so we're the weird thing. We're the anomaly. We're not a part of the universe as in that broader time frame. We're just a spurt. And I think that experiencing life is the meaning because it's so abnormal.
Right. There are no mistakes. Experience it to the fullest again.
Mm-hmm. And then creating your own meaning, I would say, would be the easiest thing.
Yes. And if you could leave our guests with a piece of profound advice, potentially life-changing, what would that be?
It'd be the same mantra that I would hold myself to on this one as well. And it is to keep up the kindness. And I say keep up the kindness, not keep up the passivity. Because kindness doesn't mean passive. Kindness is an active process, and people can recognize kindness when we see it. So that, to me, suggests that kindness is a practice. It is something that is embodied and developed via the character, the subjective person. And by being able to keep up the kindness, especially in a time when, or especially if the person is perceiving the world as chaotic, by being able to maintain that, by practicing it, we are actively participating in the resolution of the negativity rather than being enveloped by the negativity. We become a warrior of kindness rather than a slave to sorrow or negativity. Yeah.
Right. I love that. Everything is a matter of perception. So
it's true.
You don't
Frames.
like your reality, change your perception, right? We can manifest our reality. I love it. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
All right. And we'll see you next time, guys.